Here's the classic starting point. God is understood as a maximally great or perfect being.
But what does perfect even mean? Let's break down the key attributes, starting with power. First up, omnipotence. That's usually thought of as the power to do absolutely anything. Okay, so let's just dive right in with the question that has been tying theologians and philosophers in knots for centuries.
Go ahead. Think about it for a second. It feels like a logical trap, doesn't it? Because no matter which way you answer, yes or no, you immediately slam into a wall when it comes to the idea of being all-powerful.
And here's the kicker. Both a yes and a no seem to lead to the exact same conclusion, that an all-powerful or omnipotent being just can't exist. You see, if it can't create the stone, it's not all-powerful. But if it can create the stone and then can't lift it, well, it's also not all-powerful. It's a perfect catch-22. So to even begin to untangle this, we have to get really clear on what we actually mean by all-powerful. The technical term is omnipotent. The whole answer to this paradox really hinges on how you define this one word. So the most common definition in philosophy isn't the power to do literally anything. Like making a square circle or deciding that 2 + 2 now equals 5. Instead, it's defined as the power to do anything that doesn't break the rules of logic itself. The philosopher Thomas Aquinas had a really interesting way of looking at this. He basically argued that asking an all-powerful being to do something logically impossible isn't giving it a really hard task, it's just speaking gibberish. Think of a married bachelor. That's not a guy with a complicated relationship status. The words themselves are just a meaningless jumble. Okay, so with that definition in our back pocket, a pretty popular solution to the paradox pops right up. It's a very clean, very direct attempt to solve the whole riddle in one go. This argument basically says that the very idea of such a stone is total nonsense. If a being is truly omnipotent, then the phrase, "a stone it can't lift," is a self-contradiction. It doesn't describe a possible thing. So being unable to create a nonsensical object isn't a real limit on its power. Problem solved, right? Well, not so fast. And here's the plot twist. That really clever-sounding solution? It has a hidden flaw, a sneaky, logical trap of its own that makes the whole thing fall apart. This is a fallacy called begging the question, which you might also know as a circular argument. It's kind of like saying, my theory is totally correct because, well, my theory says it's correct. You see, you're not actually proving anything, you're just starting at the finish line. And this is where it all goes wrong. The argument only works if you already assume that the whole idea of an omnipotent being makes perfect logical sense. But wait a minute, that's the very thing the paradox is making us question in the first place. So yeah, this first solution fails because it secretly uses its own conclusion as proof. All right, so that first attempt is a bust. We need a better way to tackle this. And that new approach comes from a simple realization. Maybe, just maybe, we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. The problem might not be with the answer, but with the question itself. You see, phrasing it this way sets a trap. It forces our brains to imagine two conflicting absolute powers, the unlimited power to create versus the unlimited power to lift, clashing at the exact same moment. Now, let's just try looking at it this way. This phrasing creates a totally different picture, doesn't it? By breaking the problem down into two separate actions that don't conflict, the logic gets a lot clearer, and the paradox just starts to unwind. When you rephrase it like this, the answer becomes surprisingly simple. Yes, an all-powerful being has the unlimited power to create a stone of any size you can imagine. And that very same being, by definition, has the unlimited power to lift a stone of any size. The two abilities are both limitless, so they never actually run into each other and cause a contradiction. So where does that leave us? What does this all mean for that mind-bending puzzle we started with? This supposed challenge to the idea of ultimate power? Well, the crucial point here is that the paradox just completely dissolves. It was never a real problem for the concept of omnipotence. It was a problem with our language, a neat little linguistic trick that forces a contradiction where one doesn't actually exist. The being doesn't lack any power at all.